The somber hum of the Imperial starship filled the silence that hung between them, a tangible reminder of the weight now resting on Alexei's shoulders. Only hours ago, he was a mere cadet in the Galactic Academy, lost in equations and simulations, his biggest worry being the next day's exams. Now, he was an emperor, the last in the bloodline of a dynasty that had ruled the Seven Systems for centuries. But with that title came a responsibility he had never wanted, and a wife he had never met. Her name was Elara. She was beautiful in the most intimidating way, her gaze sharp enough to cut through the sturdiest of metals. Her presence commanded attention, and even the seasoned generals seemed to bow an inch lower as she passed. As Alexei entered the grand hall of the Imperial starship, the heavy doors closing behind him with a resonant thud, he saw her standing at the far end, her silhouette framed by the cosmic swirl of stars and nebulas displayed in the panoramic viewport. Elara did not move towards him, nor did she smile. Her eyes, the color of distant nebulas, watched him intently, reading him not as a husband, but as a successor to the throne she had helped maintain alongside his late father. Alexei could barely hold her gaze. The universe had thrust him into a role he was not prepared for, with a partner who was equally unprepared to accept him. "I suppose congratulations are in order, Emperor Alexei," she said, her voice carrying a cool detachment. "Please, just Alexei will do," he replied, his voice faltering slightly under her intense scrutiny. "That would be inappropriate, given your new station," Elara responded, her tone firm, yet there was a hint of something else, resignation, perhaps, or a weariness he couldn't quite understand. The silence returned, heavier this time, as they both stood apart, two figures caught in the gravity of their own separate worlds. Alexei's heart ached to bridge the gap, to find solace in this storm, but the distance between them seemed insurmountable. "You were not meant to be my husband," Elara finally said, breaking the silence with a bluntness that took Alexei by surprise. "And you were not meant to be mine," Alexei admitted, the truth of his words more painful than he had anticipated. "I know this isn't what either of us expected. But here we are and I need your help." Elara studied him for a moment longer, as if deciding how much to reveal, how much to keep guarded behind the fortress of her royal demeanor. Finally, she stepped closer, the gap closing with each deliberate step. Alexei could see the conflicts playing out behind her eyes, the storms of duty and disdain, of power and pity. "I will help you because it is my duty to the Empire," she said, stopping a few paces away from him. "Not because of you, Alexei. You must prove yourself worthy of the throne you've inherited, and of the people you aim to lead." Her words were a challenge, a gauntlet thrown at his feet, yet they sparked a fire within him. Perhaps it was the desperation of his situation, or the unexpected urge to prove himself not just to his empire, but to this enigmatic woman who was now his empress. "Then I will start now," Alexei responded with a newfound resolve. "Teach me, guide me. Not just to rule, but to be the leader our people deserve." Elara's expression softened ever so slightly, a fleeting glimpse of approval, or was it merely acceptance, crossing her features before she composed herself once more. "Very well," she said, turning to lead him through the intricate corridors of the ship. "We have much to do, and little time to waste." As they walked side by side, Alexei felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, but for the first time since his father's death, he also felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could learn to bear it. With Elara by his side, guiding him, challenging him, he would find a way to navigate the tumultuous waters of his new life. But as they moved through the shadowed halls of the starship, Alexei couldn't shake the feeling that there were secrets lurking in the corners, watching, waiting. Secrets that could either forge them together or tear their fragile alliance apart. Alexei followed Elara through the labyrinthine passageways of the Imperial starship, the silence between them a sharp contrast to the constant, subtle vibrations of the ship's engine. Each step took them deeper into the heart of what was now his domain, yet he felt like a stranger intruding in a world of secrets and shadows. "Your father had a vision for the Empire," Elara began, her voice echoing slightly off the cold metal walls. "He saw potential in the fringe systems, believed they could be brought into the fold, made equal to the core worlds. It was a vision not shared by all. And what do you believe?" Alexei asked, eager to understand the political currents that had shaped the empire. Ilara paused, turning to face a large, transparent panel that displayed the swirling gases of a distant nebula. I believe in stability and strength. Your father's dreams, while noble, stirred unrest. You will find that not all are pleased with thoughts of change, especially those who stand to lose power. The nebula cast a ghostly glow on her face, highlighting the resolve etched into her features. Alexei sensed the depth of her experience, the battles she had fought both in the open and in the shadows. How do I navigate this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. By knowing the players in the game, she replied, leading him away from the view and toward the strategic command center. Let's start with your advisors. They entered a room alive with the soft hums and beeps of machinery and holographic displays projecting data streams. 3 individuals stood as they entered, each wearing the insignia of their rank and position. This is General Ivar, commander of the Imperial Fleet, Minister Thale, head of science and technology, and Ambassador Ren, our liaison to the fringe systems, Ilara introduced. Alexei studied each face, trying to gauge their loyalty, their agendas. Ivar's stern gaze and rigid posture spoke of military discipline but also an underlying tension, as if ready for conflict. Thale, on the other hand, appeared more open, her eyes bright with curiosity and intelligence. Ren's smile was diplomatic, but his eyes were cautious, measuring. Emperor, General Ivar said, his voice gruff, your father was a great man. He left big shoes to fill. I intend to do my best, Alexei replied, his response automatic, but his mind raced. What did Ivar truly think of him, a young and untested ruler? As you know, Minister Thale interjected, we are on the verge of a breakthrough with our quantum drive technology, which could change the way we travel through space. Your support will be crucial. Ren nodded in agreement. And the fringe systems are looking to you for guidance and assurance. Your father's policies have given them hope. It is vital we continue to engage with them positively. Alexei listened, his mind whirling with the magnitude of the tasks ahead. Each advisor presented a facet of the empire that required attention, a strand in the intricate web of his rule. Ilara observed him, her gaze sharp. You will need to make decisions, some of which will not be popular. But remember, strength sometimes requires us to make hard choices. Your heart must be strong, but your mind must be stronger. As they left the command center, Alexei felt the gravity of his role as emperor. The ship, a behemoth of steel and circuits, felt like it was closing in around him. He had to learn, and quickly, not just to survive but to thrive. Tell me more about the fringe systems, Alexei said, turning to Ilara as they walked. What challenges do they face? How can I help? Ilara's response was measured, her words weaving the complex narrative of a galaxy in flux, of worlds on the brink of either breakthrough or breakdown. Alexei listened intently, the seeds of his own vision for the empire beginning to take root, inspired by the stories of those living on the edge of known space. As they spoke, the starship continued its silent voyage through the cosmos, a lone vessel carrying the hopes of an empire. But beneath the quiet hum and the soft glow of the control panels, plots and plans simmered in the dark corridors of power. Alexei was learning quickly, but would it be fast enough? The answers lay hidden among the stars, waiting for him to discover them. As the Imperial starship cleaved through the void, Alexei found himself poring over data pads filled with reports, projections, and histories that seemed to stretch back to the beginning of time itself. His eyes occasionally drifted to the vast, star-studded emptiness outside his quarters' viewports, a constant reminder of the expanse he now governed. Ilara had become his constant companion, advisor, and instructor in the delicate art of rule. Their sessions, once filled with her dictating protocols and him listening, had evolved into spirited debates about strategy and ethics. It was during one such session that the ship's comm system chimed, slicing through their conversation with the sharpness of a blade. Emperor, we have an urgent transmission from the fringe system of Helion. The voice of the ship's communications officer crackled through the speaker. They are requesting immediate assistance? Helion, a system on the edge of the Empire's reach, had always been a hotbed of discord but also a beacon of potential, rich in resources and rife with innovation. Its plea for help was a litmus test for Alexei's newly forming policies. What is the nature of their distress? Alexei asked, his voice steady, projecting a calm he barely felt. It appears to be a pirate incursion, sir. The local defense forces are engaged, but they're outmatched. Pirates were not uncommon in the less patrolled sectors of space, thriving in the shadow of bureaucratic neglect and the slow churn of imperial protection. Alexei's hand went to his chin, stroking thoughtfully. The decision he made now would set a precedent for his rule. General Ivar, Alexei called, summoning the commander to the strategy room. Within minutes, the grizzled general appeared, his uniform impeccable despite the urgency. Your Highness, I recommend deploying the 4th Fleet to Helen, Ivar said without preamble. Their presence should deter further aggression and secure the system. And the implications of showing such force? Alexei queried, aware of the many eyes on him. It will demonstrate our commitment to the security of the fringe systems, Ilara interjected, her tone supportive. It will show that your reign marks a continuation of protection and strength. Alexei nodded, decision made. Send the 4th Fleet to Helen. Make it clear that their mission is protection, not conquest. General Ivar saluted sharply and exited to carry out the orders. Alexei turned to the viewport, watching as stars slid by in silent judgment or silent support. He could not tell which. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Alexei's decision was broadcast across the empire, and the reactions were as varied as the stars themselves. Praise came from those who saw his swift action as a sign of a decisive leader, while criticism bubbled up from corners wary of military overreach. As the 4th Fleet reported their successful deterrence of the pirates and the stabilization of Helen, Alexei allowed himself a moment of relief. Yet, the victory was short-lived. Reports began to filter in of a growing unrest in other parts of the empire, of whispers that the new emperor was too young, too inexperienced, too reliant on his military. The balance of power is delicate, Ilara reminded him as they reviewed the reports together. Each action has ripples that reach far beyond the immediate. I understand, Alexei murmured, his eyes on the digital maps displaying his sprawling empire. And I am learning that the mantle of rule is heavier than I ever imagined. In the privacy of his quarters, Alexei pondered the paths before him. His father had left an empire of incredible might and complex problems. He needed to weave his authority into the fabric of the galaxy, integrating strength with compassion. Each decision sculpted his image both within the imperial court and out among the stars. As the empire watched and waited, Alexei prepared for the next challenge, knowing each would test his resolve and shape the destiny of countless lives. His empire was a web, each thread connected in ways he was only beginning to understand, and he the spider at its center, weaving with cautious hope and determined spirit. In the quiet of the early morning hours aboard the imperial starship, Alexei stood at the viewport, watching a distant star flare brilliantly against the backdrop of space. His mind, however, was far from the celestial wonders before him, tangled instead in the intricate politics that threaded through his empire like veins of precious metal through rock. Ilara joined him, her presence no longer as starkly formal as it once had been, but still wrapped in the layers of duty and resolve that defined her. She handed him a data pad, the soft light outlining the stark features of her face in the dimness. Trouble in the Trilar sector, she announced without preamble. Her voice held a slight edge, a sharpened concern that drew Alexei's attention from the cosmos to the cold glow of the screen. The mining guilds are on the brink of revolt, she continued, her finger tracing the sector on the map displayed. They're demanding better conditions and a share in the profits. It's more than just unrest, Alexei. It's a symptom of deeper issues, exploitation, disparity, the remnants of your father's oversight. Alexei absorbed the information, the weight of leadership pressing down upon him with every word she spoke. How have we addressed these grievances in the past? With force, typically, Ilara replied, her lips thinning. It quelled the unrest but sowed deeper seeds of resentment. We need a new approach then, Alexei mused, his gaze returning briefly to the star-strewn void outside. One that doesn't merely suppress but addresses the root causes. Ilara nodded, approvingly. I agree. Perhaps a visit to the sector, a meeting with the guild leaders. Show them that you hear their concerns. The suggestion resonated with Alexei, aligning with the vision he was slowly forming for his reign. Arrange it, he decided, the flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. It's time they see their emperor stands with them, not above them. The preparations for the visit were meticulous, with every detail scrutinized for potential threats or missteps. Alexei's decision to confront the issues head-on was a gamble, staking his nascent authority on the chance to forge a connection with his people. As their ship descended into the atmosphere of Trilar 7, the world of the mining guilds, Alexei felt the simmering tension, a palpable presence that greeted them as they disembarked. The planet was stark, its landscapes dominated by vast quarries and towering machinery, the air heavy with the scent of ionized minerals. The guild leaders, toughened by labor and the harshness of their world, were initially skeptical. Their eyes held a hardened wariness as they met their young emperor. Alexei, clad not in imperial regalia but in a simple suit, approached them with a humility that was both strategic and sincere. "I have come to listen," he began, his voice carrying clearly over the murmurs of the crowd that had gathered. "And to learn. Tell me how the Empire can support not just the extraction of resources, but the lives of those who mine them." The talks were long and fraught with years of grievances. Alexei listened, asked questions, and took notes. His engagement was not a mere ceremonial nod but an active participation that slowly thawed the initial frostiness of the guild leaders. As the meeting drew to a close, with promises of reforms and a scheduled return visit, the atmosphere was cautiously optimistic. Alexei's gamble appeared to be paying off, his presence and promises laying the foundation for a new chapter of mutual respect and potential collaboration. Back aboard the ship, as they ascended from Trilar 7, Ilara joined Alexei at the viewport once more. "A bold move," she commented, watching the planet shrink away into the darkness of space. "Bold but necessary," Alexei replied, his reflection in the glass mirroring the resolve in his eyes. "The Empire must be more than a collector of resources. It must be a community, a network of support and strength." Ilara nodded, a small smile breaking through her usual reserve. "Today, you were more than an emperor. You were a leader." As the ship slipped back into the silent flow of space, Alexei felt a kinship not just with the stars but with the countless lives that moved within his reach. Each decision, each action, was a thread in the fabric of his empire, woven with the hope of unity and the strength of new beginnings. The political landscape of the galaxy was never static, and Alexei was learning to navigate its shifts and swells with an acumen that surprised even Ilara. The initial success at Trilar 7 had emboldened him, but it also cast a sharper light on the other, darker corners of his empire. In his private study aboard the starship, a secure transmission from Ambassador Rin flickered to life. The ambassador's face was taut with concern, the usual diplomatic polish frayed at the edges. "Emperor, we have a delicate situation in the Vorian sector. It seems a faction within the local government is colluding with pirate groups. They're siphoning off supplies meant for the outer colonies." The news was a cold splash of reality on Alexei's recent victory. "How credible is this information?" he asked, his mind already racing through the implications. "Highly credible. We've intercepted communications that confirm the collusion. This goes deep, and it threatens the stability of the entire sector," Ren replied, his voice low. Alexei leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "Assemble a covert team. I want them to gather irrefutable evidence. We need to address this surgically, no broad strokes that might destabilize the sector further." Ilara, who had been quietly observing, added, "This could also be an opportunity, Alexei. Exposing this corruption could strengthen loyalty among the other governors and demonstrate the consequences of betrayal." Indeed, Alexei acknowledged, feeling the dual edge of the situation, both threat and opportunity. The days that followed were a masterclass in the subtler arts of empire, espionage, whispers in shadowed corridors, the silent exchange of data and favors. Alexei found himself in a constant state of alert, weighing each decision, each piece of information that came across his desk. When the team finally returned, they brought with them a trove of encrypted data, enough to dismantle the corrupt network within the Vorian sector. But Alexei knew that the reveal had to be timed perfectly to maximize its impact and minimize the fallout. He called a meeting of his top advisors, including General Ivar, Minister Thale, and Ilara. The holographic displays in the room lit up with the evidence, casting a stark blue light over their serious faces. Timing is crucial, Alexei began, his voice steady. We must act swiftly but carefully. General, I'll need the military on standby for any fallout. Minister, make sure that the supply chains to the outer colonies are secured and reinforced. Ilara, her eyes scanning the data, said, and we should prepare a statement for the public. When this breaks, the people will need to hear from their emperor. They'll need reassurance and a clear message that such corruption will not be tolerated. The plan was set into motion with precision. Under Alexei's command, the Empire struck swiftly, arresting those involved and seizing control of the corrupted supply lines. The news was broadcast across the galaxy, Alexei himself delivering the address, his image projected on countless screens, his voice a calm beacon of authority and resolve. As your emperor, I promise you transparency and justice. The betrayal uncovered today is unacceptable and will be met with the full force of the law, he declared, his words echoing across the vast reaches of space. The response from the populace was overwhelmingly supportive. His decisive action not only cleansed a festering wound within the empire but also solidified his image as a ruler committed to justice and the welfare of his people. In the aftermath, as the political dust settled, Alexei and Ilara reviewed the situation. You handled that well, Ilara conceded, her respect for him deepening. But be prepared. For every shadow we illuminate, others may deepen. Alexei nodded, aware that each victory brought new challenges. We'll be ready, he assured her, his resolve hardened like the steel of the starships that coursed through his domain. The empire was vast, a network of worlds and peoples, each with their own dreams and despairs. As emperor, Alexei had begun to weave these threads together, not just ruling but connecting, his vision for a united empire growing clearer with each challenge met and each obstacle overcome. As the starship navigated the silent expanse of space, Alexei found himself grappling with the complexities of his burgeoning empire more acutely than ever. With each crisis averted, the threads of governance seemed to weave themselves tighter, binding him to a future fraught with both peril and promise. Ilara's warnings of deeper shadows had taken root in his mind, creating a backdrop of vigilance against which all decisions were now cast. It wasn't long before a new challenge emerged, whispered through the encrypted channels by a source embedded deep within the industrial complex of the Cygnus system, a potential coup brewing among his own military ranks. The information is still fragmented, Ilara reported, her features taut with the urgency of the news. But it appears a faction within your own fleet may be plotting. Their motives are not yet clear, but their capabilities are formidable. Alexei leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the holographic star map that glowed softly in the dim light of the strategy room. We need more intelligence. Who is leading them? What do they want? We're working on that, Ilara responded, her fingers deftly navigating the datapad. I suggest increasing surveillance and perhaps a discreet internal review of the fleet's communications. Implement it, Alexei instructed, his voice carrying a calm that belied the turmoil within. And bring General Ivar in. If there's a betrayal, I want to gauge his reaction firsthand. The meeting with General Ivar was tense, the air charged with an unspoken acknowledgement of the stakes at play. Ivar, seasoned and scarred from battles past, faced Alexei's scrutiny with a stoic composure. General, there is a potential threat within our ranks, Alexei began, watching the general's reactions closely. I trust you can assist in rooting out any disloyalty? Of course, my emperor, Ivar replied, his voice steady. Loyalty to the throne is the backbone of our military. Any threat to that is a threat to the empire itself. Alexei nodded, but his mind raced with scenarios and possibilities. Trust was a luxury he could ill afford, yet without it he could not rule effectively. Following the meeting, Alexei and Ilara convened with their closest advisors in a series of secret discussions, plotting out their strategy to uncover the plot. Surveillance was heightened, and trusted agents were inserted into key positions throughout the fleet. As they awaited the results of their countermeasures, another pressing issue demanded Alexei's attention: the economic disparity between the core worlds and the outer systems. A summit was scheduled on the central planet of the Solara system, bringing together leaders and representatives from across the Empire to address the growing concerns. Balancing military security and economic stability will be the key to maintaining control, Ilara advised as they prepared for the summit. Your leadership must be both a shield and a beacon. At the summit, Alexei addressed the assembly with a blend of authority and empathy, acknowledging the challenges and outlining his vision for a more unified empire. We stand at a crossroads, he declared. Together, we can choose the path of prosperity and peace, or we can fall into discord and division. The words resonated, stirring a mixture of applause and thoughtful murmurs among the audience. Yet, even as he spoke, Alexei remained acutely aware of the undercurrents of dissent and dissatisfaction that ran like fault lines through the gathered crowd. Behind the scenes, the intelligence from the fleet began to coalesce into a clearer picture. A small but dangerous group of officers, disillusioned with what they perceived as Alexei's overly diplomatic approach, were indeed plotting to seize control of the fleet. Armed with this knowledge, Alexei orchestrated a series of arrests, each executed with precision to avoid inciting panic or further dissent. The plotters were detained quietly, brought to face justice in a manner that underscored the Emperor's commitment to both strength and fairness. As the starship returned to its course, Alexei stood once more before the viewport, the stars a silent tapestry against the dark canvas of space. Each light, a world with its own stories and struggles, reflected back at him the enormity of his task. With Ilara at his side, and the Empire watching, Alexei continued to navigate the intricate dance of power and perception. His rule, a blend of astuteness and action, was slowly, but surely, cementing his place not just as a leader, but as a visionary capable of steering the Empire toward a future filled with as much hope as there were stars. The delicate balance of power within the Empire often hung on a thread as thin as silk, each movement of its leaders and factions a potential sway towards chaos or order. As Alexei sat in the dimly lit room of his private chambers, his thoughts were punctuated by the rhythmic tapping of his fingers on the armrest of his chair. The recent military unrest had been quelled, but the echo of its intent still resonated through the corridors of power. Ilara, ever the vigilant sentinel, brought reports of lingering sentiments among the ranks, a mix of admiration for Alexei's decisive action and residual unrest among those who had sympathized with the plotters. The fleet may be stabilized for now, she commented as she handed him the latest security updates, but we must be proactive in fostering loyalty. We need more than fear to maintain order. Alexei nodded, his mind already formulating plans. Organize a tour of the key fleet stations. I'll address the officers personally. We'll launch initiatives to improve conditions and benefits for the military. Visible leadership is crucial, Ilara agreed, her eyes reflecting the strategic calculations behind her composed exterior. Showing your face, hearing their concerns firsthand, it humanizes your rule. The tour was set against the backdrop of the Empire's sprawling reach, each station a microcosm of the larger system, each interaction a stitch in the fabric of loyalty he hoped to weave. Alexei's speeches were not just formalities, they were conversations, an exchange of hopes and assurances. He listened intently to the stories of service and sacrifice, acknowledging each with a sincerity that slowly thawed the residual coldness left by the recent conspiracy. Meanwhile, Ilara remained a step behind, her observations sharp as she gauged the pulse of the crowd, the shifts in mood, the whispers that spoke volumes in their hushed tones. Her reports to Alexei were concise, painting a picture of gradual but tangible progress. In the midst of these efforts, a new challenge emerged from an unexpected quarter. The scientific community, particularly those engaged in deep space exploration, expressed grievances over what they perceived as neglect, a diversion of resources towards military and economic stability at the expense of scientific advancement. The Empire's strength is not just built on force or wealth but on knowledge, Minister Thale emphasized during a heated advisory council meeting. If we allow our scientific endeavors to stagnate, we risk losing much more than just potential discoveries. Alexei felt the weight of her words, understanding that every sector of his empire needed nurturing. Arrange a symposium, he decided. Bring our top scientists together. Let's discuss what they need and how we can integrate their work into our vision for a progressive empire. The symposium was a vibrant gathering of minds, the air crackling with ideas and debates. Alexei attended not just as a ruler but as a student eager to learn, to absorb the complexities of quantum mechanics, astrophysics, and the myriad other fields that held the keys to the universe. His engagement was met with enthusiasm, a shared excitement that bridged the gap between governance and academia. As these efforts unfolded, a darker plot simmered in the shadows. The stability of Alexei's rule was an affront to those who thrived in chaos, who saw in the empire's intricate dance a chance to sway the steps to their tune. Intelligence reports hinted at a collusion between a disgraced noble house and external pirates, a union of convenience aimed at destabilizing the fringe systems to distract Alexei from the core worlds. Stay ahead of them, Alexei instructed his security teams, his voice a calm command amidst the storm of potential threats. We cannot afford to be blindsided. Ilara coordinated the countermeasures, a silent war waged in the depths of encrypted channels and shadowed meetings. Her presence at Alexei's side was not just support, it was a shield, a strategic mind that complemented his vision with her strength. As the empire sailed through the cosmic sea, its young emperor at the helm faced the dual demands of leadership and legacy. With each victory, the shadows grew, but so too did the light of his resolve, a beacon that sought to illuminate the dark corners of his realm and guide it towards a future as bright as the stars themselves. Alexei's resolve to unify and strengthen his empire was continually tested by the winds of intrigue and the currents of treachery that flowed beneath the surface of political alliances. As he navigated these turbulent waters, his leadership was constantly refined in the forge of governance and crisis management. In a dimly lit secure communication room, a series of intercepted transmissions were laid out before him. The content was explosive, proof of the collusion between the renegade noble house and the pirate syndicates that Ilara had suspected. The betrayal ran deeper than anticipated, implicating some within his own circle of advisors. Trust must be earned, yet again, Alexei mused aloud as Ilara reviewed the data alongside him. Her expression was severe, a mirror to the gravity of their discovery. We need to act swiftly, she asserted. The longer we wait, the more entrenched these conspirators become. With a decisive nod, Alexei prepared to uproot this new threat. Gather a trusted force. I want arrests made quietly. No public spectacle until we understand the full extent of this conspiracy. As the silent arrests began, the empire seemed to hold its breath. Alexei observed the reactions of his court, reading the subtle shifts in demeanor and the unspoken questions that hung in the air. The tension was palpable, a living thing that thrummed through the corridors of the imperial palace. Parallel to dealing with the traitors, Alexei focused on fortifying the empire's defenses, aware that external threats could capitalize on internal weaknesses. He met with General Ivar and his strategic team, outlining a plan to reinforce vulnerable sectors and enhance surveillance along the trade routes most susceptible to pirate attacks. The integrity of our borders is paramount, Alexei emphasized to the gathering of military leaders. Let us show that not only can we manage our internal affairs, but we are also vigilant against external threats. Meanwhile, the plight of the fringe systems, especially those hardest hit by the piracy, demanded his attention. Alexei initiated a series of aid missions, combining military escorts with medical and food supplies, turning what had been mere tactical deployments into humanitarian efforts. This initiative not only bolstered the empire's defense but also its moral standing among the outer colonies. As these missions unfolded, Alexei ensured that news of these efforts, and the stories of those they helped, were broadcast across the empire. It was vital that the narrative of his rule be shaped by acts of strength and compassion, rather than the shadow of betrayal. In the quieter moments away from the public eye, Alexei pondered the future. Each decision he made seemed to spawn a host of new challenges. Yet, with Ilara's steadfast presence, he found the clarity and courage to confront each day. The revelation of treachery within his own ranks was a harsh reminder of the precarious nature of his position. During a late-night strategy session, Ilara presented a comprehensive plan to re-evaluate their internal security protocols. "We must weave a tighter net," she proposed, her voice echoing slightly in the vastness of the strategy room. "Every advisor, every officer must be vetted again. We cannot afford another breach." Alexei agreed, knowing that the stability of his rule depended on the loyalty and integrity of those around him. This re-evaluation was not just precautionary. It was a necessary reshaping of his governance structure. As he implemented these changes, the empire slowly began to stabilize. The swift handling of the conspiracy, coupled with his ongoing public initiatives, restored a measure of public confidence. Yet, in the game of empires, a ruler's work was never done. Alexei knew that with each thread of betrayal unraveled, the fabric of his empire grew stronger, reinforced by the lessons learned in each confrontation. With Ilara by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges came next, guiding his realm with a hand both firm and just, as the stars above bore silent witness to his growing legacy. Amid the vast emptiness of space, the hum of the starship served as a constant reminder to Alexei that the cosmos, despite its sprawling silence, was alive with movement and machinations. His recent actions to stabilize the empire had sent ripples through the political landscape, altering alignments and loyalties with a subtlety that required his vigilant attention. One evening, as the starship traversed the nebula near the Orion sector, a clandestine meeting took place in Alexei's private study. The participants were a select few, trusted beyond reproach, gathered to discuss the emergence of a new, potentially disruptive technology discovered by one of the Empire's distant research outposts. Minister Thale, leading the discussion, presented a holographic model of the device. "This is a quantum filament reducer, a breakthrough with the potential to revolutionize energy consumption across the Empire. However, its implications are vast, and its power, if misused, could be catastrophic." Alexei, intrigued yet cautious, studied the swirling hologram. "How widespread is knowledge of this discovery?" "Currently, it's contained within our top scientific circles, but secrecy will be increasingly difficult to maintain," Thale replied, her brow furrowed. "Then we must manage the narrative and the rollout carefully," Alexei concluded, fully aware that such advancements were as much a matter of security as they were of science. The conversation shifted when Ilara brought up the recent increase in communications intercepted from the Meridian sector, a region known for its political neutrality but strategic importance. "There's chatter about factions interested in the reducer technology," she noted, her voice tinged with concern. "We need to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands or become a bargaining chip in regional disputes." Alexei agreed, recognizing the dual challenge of advancing scientific progress while safeguarding it from becoming a catalyst for conflict. "Let's initiate a covert operation to monitor these communications more closely. We need to understand their intentions and capabilities." As plans were set in motion, the Empire seemed to hold its breath, the weight of the upcoming decisions pressing upon Alexei's shoulders. He knew the importance of each step taken, each word spoken, as he guided his people through this labyrinth of potential and peril. In subsequent days, Alexei focused on diplomatic efforts to strengthen ties with the Meridian sector, proposing a series of mutual aid and research agreements. His approach was methodical, each move calculated to reinforce stability while extending the Empire's influence through cooperation rather than coercion. Simultaneously, Alexei launched a series of public engagements across various media platforms, discussing the potential benefits of the new technology. His addresses were crafted to inspire and reassure, to paint a picture of a future brightened by innovation that benefited all under his rule. However, beneath the surface of these public endeavors, the shadows of intrigue grew deeper. Reports of a mysterious syndicate, previously underestimated, began to surface, their interest in the quantum filament reducer more than just scientific curiosity. This group had ties that extended beyond the Empire's borders, suggesting a network of influence and ambition that posed a new kind of threat. Ilara, analyzing this intelligence, proposed an expansion of their surveillance and security measures. "We are not just governing an empire, we are defending a vision of the future," she reminded Alexei during one of their late-night strategy sessions. Acknowledging the gravity of her words, Alexei expanded the scope of their security operations, intertwining them with the diplomatic and scientific initiatives already underway. This multi-pronged strategy was designed to fortify the Empire's position both internally and on the galactic stage. As the starship continued its voyage, cutting through the cosmic silence, Alexei stood before the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Each one seemed to hold a story, a secret, just like the countless lives he was sworn to protect. With Ilara at his side and the weight of the Empire on his shoulders, he prepared for the challenges ahead, ready to turn potential disruptions into opportunities for growth and unity. The void was deep and full of unknowns, but Alexei was determined to navigate it with foresight and resolve, ensuring his legacy would be one of peace and progress. In the cold expanse of space, the silence was an entity unto itself, woven through the tapestry of starlight that stretched across the galaxy. In his command quarters aboard the flagship, Alexei felt the solitude of his position more keenly than ever. The recent tumult of events had solidified his resolve, yet the breadth of his responsibilities stretched infinitely before him, each decision echoing into the void. As the quantum filament reducer became public knowledge, the Empire buzzed with discussions and debates on its implications. Alexei and his advisors had managed to keep the control of this groundbreaking technology tight, but with great power came great scrutiny and greater dangers. In the grand hall of the Central Space Station, a summit was convened. Representatives from across the Empire gathered, their faces a mosaic of the diverse worlds Alexei ruled. The atmosphere was charged with a cautious optimism as Alexei addressed the assembly, outlining the potential of the new technology to revolutionize their way of life while emphasizing the need for ethical stewardship. "We stand on the brink of a new era," Alexei proclaimed, his voice resonant and clear. "This technology is a tool, one that can build or destroy, and it is our duty to wield it with wisdom and foresight." His speech was met with a swell of applause, a chorus of approval that filled the chamber and briefly lightened the burden he carried. Yet, as the summit continued, with workshops and panels delving into the specifics of deployment and security, Alexei remained vigilant, aware of the undercurrents pulling beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Ilara, ever his confidant and co-strategist, coordinated the intelligence efforts that spanned the galaxy. The mysterious syndicate that had shown an unhealthy interest in the reducer was still a shadow on the horizon, elusive yet persistent. Through a network of spies and informants, they pieced together the syndicate's structure and ambitions. It was a sprawling web with tendrils reaching into unexpected places, including some who had once been allies. The threat was diffuse, manifesting not as a direct assault but as subtle sabotage and espionage. In response, Alexei authorized a series of covert operations to dismantle the syndicate's influence. Each move was calculated, each strike precise, aimed at severing the links that bound the syndicate together. It was a silent war, fought in the shadows of the galaxy, where light met dark in a quiet yet fierce confrontation. As the operations unfolded, a decisive blow was struck when a key syndicate leader was captured in a raid on a remote outpost. The interrogation revealed the depth of the conspiracy and the identities of several high-ranking collaborators within the Empire's own ranks. With this information, Alexei acted swiftly. The collaborators were arrested, their schemes laid bare before the courts of justice. It was a public demonstration of Alexei's commitment to integrity and security, reinforcing his rule with the steel of transparency and the shield of law. The Empire, once riddled with silent fractures, began to solidify under Alexei's reign. Trust was rebuilt, slowly but steadily, as each successful operation and each fulfilled promise cemented his reputation as a leader of both vision and strength. In the aftermath, as peace settled over the Empire like a blanket of stars, Alexei and Ilara stood together in the command room, looking out at the universe. The challenges they had faced were many, and more would surely come, but they had navigated each with a combination of wisdom, courage, and an unyielding commitment to their people. "The galaxy is vast," Alexei said, his voice a soft reflection of his awe and his resolve. "And each star is a world of possibilities." Ilara smiled, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "And you, my emperor, have shown that even amidst the darkest spaces, there is light to be found, paths to be forged, and a future to be shaped. Together, they turned their gaze forward, toward the endless expanse, ready to meet whatever challenges the stars might hold with the same unbreakable spirit that had brought them this far. The Empire, under Alexi's rule, was more than a collection of planets. It was a symphony of life, a harmony of purpose and possibility played out against the backdrop of the infinite cosmos.